France had the first round of regional elections yesterday, and, quelle surprise, it went down exactly how I said it will. Let's explore. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Now, I've been saying for the last few months, even before the Paris attacks, that the Kremlin-funded fascist Front National will indeed win the regional elections in France and will pave the way to increase tensions in all aspects of life in the French Republic. For such utterances, I've been called all sorts of names, as if it's my fault that the French political establishment is so bloody pathetic that the only apparent options for the average Frenchman is the Kremlin-funded scheme led by Marine Le Pen. I've had French folks come to my channel and calling me names for daring to use my magical quality of knowing how to read and drawing the commonsensical conclusion based on what I'm reading. Well, I'm sorry that's offending you, but you know the drill. I don't care. So, according to the official results announced by the Ministry of Interior, Front National gathered a bit over 6 million votes, which accounts for 27.73% of the total. The second party is the right-wing Union with roughly 5.8 million votes, or 26.65%, and the third formation is the left-wing Union with roughly 5 million votes, or 23.12% of the total. Other formations that matter are the Greens with 3.83% of the vote, and the far-left Bolsheviks with a bit over 600,000 votes, or almost 3% of the vote. The turnout was almost 50%, so that means half of the French voters didn't even bother to vote. For those of you unfamiliar with the French electoral system, this is the first round of the elections, and the second round is due to be held at the end of this week on December 13. In practical terms, this means that Front National is bound to take control of at least one region in France, as they polled first in 6 of the 13 regions of metropolitan France. So even in the worst-case scenario, they will still be on top in at least one region, this being an all-time first for the Le Pen coup. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Front National is bound to get the same treatment as Sverigedemokraterna has been getting in Sweden for quite some time now, namely that the entire political establishment is to team up in a bid to try to stop the rise of Front National in the second and decisive round of this Sunday. The difference, in my view, is that France is not Sweden, well, obviously, but what I mean by that is that France is not a tiny, consensus-driven, ideologically coherent nation where any dissent is to be crushed by nationwide ostracism. That's Sweden, not France. In France, for better or worse, vigorous disagreement is a tradition of the Republic, and collectivist slurs like fascist and anti-Semite and whatever have a very limited effect in an election. Also, due to the size of the nation, controlling the entire media, which is a daily reality in the Kingdom of Sweden, is an impossible task in France, even under the emergency state which France currently finds itself in. On top of that, the French electorate is very temperamental, which should be no surprise given that all Latin peoples tend to be that way. So, with that in mind, one should now look closely where Front National has gotten big scores. Marine Le Pen has personally gotten 40% of the vote in Nord-Pas-de-Calais, Picardie. Yeah, that Calais, where thousands upon thousands of youths have invaded and devastated the place, some in a bid to reach the United Kingdom, others just because potato. La Région Nord-Pas-de-Calais-Picardie is also the poorest region in mainland France and has a population higher than Denmark and has traditionally been a bastion of the left and the far left. Marine Le Pen's niece, Marion Maréchal Le Pen, got over 40% and is very likely to win the region Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur, which is one of the richest areas in all of France, both metropolitan and overseas, and she won on a platform unconceivable 5 or 6 years ago, namely pro-Christian, pro-life, and on a general France for Frenchmen sentiment. And mind you, this woman is barely 25 years old. What I'm trying to say with all of these details is that the victory of Front National is not a surprise at all, but rather it was inevitable, and no matter what shenanigans the establishment will pull, FN is very likely to fundamentally transform the French political landscape for the rest of this decade. And the shenanigans of the establishment aren't mild at all. Hollande's socialists announced that they would pull out of the second round race in both Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur and Nord-Pas-de-Calais-Picardie in the hope of stopping Marine and Marion Le Pen from winning. This strategy is in and of itself risky, since there is no guarantee that the socialists in those areas would be quick to vote for Sarkozy's Republicans just to offset Front National. But the fact that they're willing to take such a risk shows the level of desperation that exists in the socialist ranks and, by extension, throughout the French political establishment. And mind you, I'm not saying any of these things with joy. Most of the policies of Front National are quite a mess. I mean, kicking out troublemakers, curbing the influence of Islam, and actually enforcing some French values on French soil for a change is all fine and dandy. But once you look past that, things aren't looking good at all. I mean, their economic policy involves nationalization and preservation of most of the economic socialist measures that are currently crippling the nation. On foreign policy, their doctrine is a mixture of Duginist ideology and flower power nonsense. So for those of you out there who may think Front National is a solution, you should probably think again. But nevertheless, Front National has everything that the rest of the parties do not. Front National has young, enthusiastic candidates, members, and supporters. They have the "we are the future" kind of vibe to carry them through elections, and they've shown consistently over the years that they don't give a flying toss over what the old fossils in the establishment think about them. They speak their mind, and they sound like they speak with conviction. Whether that's indeed the case or not is completely irrelevant in a popular contest. And these facts have indeed contributed decisively to gather support from both the rich and the poor, and to cut right through the party lines and to rally a strong and energetic base. Now, will this last till 2017 to propel Marine Le Pen to presidency? I personally don't think so. Just like Hollande's recent boost in popularity did not help the Socialist Party these elections, I don't think the reverse will be true either 18 months from now. However, I am almost certain that this will last through this week to carry Front National to a historical final result this Sunday. They may not win 6 regions, but even if they win 1 region, that's already more than anyone, including Marine Le Pen herself, dared to even hope at the beginning of this year. In the grand scheme of things, though, further problems can indeed be avoided. At the end of the day, the winners of these regional elections will get to control local transport, some redistributionist policies regarding economic development, high schools, vocational training, and a few other minor stuff. If the political establishment wakes the fuck up and starts playing ball with the silent majority, Front National will never go beyond a regional third party. However, if the establishment continues to be stubborn, and for now it sure looks that way, then the sky is the limit for Front National. At a time when most French voters were wondering who the hell takes some responsibility for their safety in return to the immense taxes they're being subjected to, Hollande and the clique of pricks in Paris were talking about climate change. Because in line with the other leftist idiot, Hussein of the White House, the official ideology these days is that climate change is the biggest threat to both US and European security. Yes, the fact that today rains and tomorrow doesn't, and the fact that last year on December 7th there was some snow, and today there seems to be less snow, that's the biggest threat. Not jihad, not the erosion of the national identities of Some nations of Europe, particularly France, no. The weather is the fucking problem. For as long as these loons continue to exist in their bubble that no one in the real world really gives a shit about, parties like Front National will continue to rise because for all their stupidity, and there's plenty of that in Front National, they at least speak the language of the common Frenchman. Just like Sverige Demokrater now at least speaks the same language as the common Swede. And just like Geert Wilders' Partij van Vrijheid speaks the language of the common Dutchman. The mainstream is broken, and it only has itself to blame for that. Alright, that's enough for now. So, did I miss something? Tell me in the comments, and I'll come back with further analysis on France after the results of the second round this Sunday will be announced. So, that being said, thank you for watching.